All right. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Good evening.
Going to start the February 6th Finance Committee meeting. This is Alana Gustafson, the chair. We are recording this evening's meeting, so please be careful not to screen share anything that you don't want captured in that recording. Also, all votes this evening will be taken by a roll call vote. And I need to confirm that all members present can participate remotely. So Peter, you're first on my screen tonight.
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Kevin.
Yes.
Ken.
Yes.
Jillian.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So we have basically one agenda item other than our normal routine stuff, and that item is to get ready for the joint budget meeting with the select board and other invited guests. So that meeting is the agenda should be getting sent out soon. I did post on our end, I posted our quorum notice, and then there will be a meeting posting with the agenda soon. So the meeting is taking place Saturday at 9 a.m. at the new fire station in their conference room. I believe we are doing a hybrid, but I will confirm that. But we are definitely going to have an in-person meeting. And then also, I believe there will be the hybrid option if anyone would like to do that. So meeting notice to come soon.
So they haven't sent I was looking for the meeting notice. They haven't posted it yet?
No, I don't believe so. I think there was just a little bit of lag. If you may or may not all know that the chair of the select board, Jeff Swanberg, had a medical event. He needed to be out of commission for a little bit, and we had discussed the meeting prior to him leaving, and then I think it was just one of those things where I don't know if we either thought we both talked to Greg or something, but we're getting it all squared away now, and we should have the meeting posted soon.
Yeah, I mean, it just would be nice to have it posted so people, members of the community would be able to, to find out about it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, all right. So to get us started tonight, I did, and I apologize for not sending this, emailing this to the committee ahead of time. It is up on board docs now, but I started a little slide, a few slides for our meeting for the presentation that the Finance Committee will be doing on the agenda. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hang on, I thought I had that one open. Give me 1 second. And we can start here and get our thoughts. Okay, here we go. These are not like formatted yet or prettified in any way. This is just like the content, and I will make them look nicer for the meeting itself. So we had talked at our last meeting about some of the items that we thought were important to discuss at the budget meeting with everyone. So the first that I think we were talking about is the fact that we want to further educate town meeting voters on the importance of adding development to town and why that would be important. So that's what this slide is about, that there are, we have a lot of budget needs. The budget's always tight, and there's two ways to, handle a tight budget. One would be expanding revenue, and there's two basic ways to do that. You add development, or you do a Prop 2.5 override or debt exclusions to pay for things. Or the other way is to cut services. And the second bullet there is about, if we add development, we expand our tax base, we try to spread the tax burden, lighten the load on any particular individual, but still have more money to work with. And also we had discussed that more students in the Maynard Public Schools, we had some drop in enrollment. It has come back, I believe the last year or so has been a little bit of a rebound, but that there used to be, I guess, apprehension about adding to the schools, but that actually, it can be a good thing for us, and that we've had more in the past, so that we should be able to handle that. And then you get more money, from the state, and that's not necessarily such a negative. And then more commercial appeal, leading to more foot traffic, leading to more people and more spending in town. So these were my bullet points that I thought would be helpful for talking about development. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up for thoughts, edits, additions, subtractions. Whoever would like to go. Sorry, I can't see everybody right now.
All right, I'll go.
Okay.
I mean, I think it generally makes sense. I'm not sure, I certainly don't disagree with it. I guess I would say, I'm not sure the February meeting is, it doesn't hurt to say this, but that's not really the general public. And so, in some ways we're I'm sure, I don't think there's anybody in that meeting that's going to disagree with this. So, I mean, still probably worth saying, but it's not really where we should be targeting the message.
Well, it could be then, if not the budget meeting, this could be something for like an ATM message, maybe instead.
Well, so if I'm interpreting Peter's comment correctly, the point is this is a joint budget review between between the select board and the finance committee. It is our discussion between the two, boards. Certainly the school committee is there, significant portion of the budget, so it should be there. Members of the public are certainly welcome. But again, if I'm interpreting Peter's point there, this is our communication to the select board, certainly with the members of the public in mind, but it's really sitting there saying, here's where, here's what we think, the issues are that are affecting our town financial situation.
All right.
Which,
so
yeah, I mean, this definitely is, and I don't think it's, incorrect or wrong in any way.
Right.
It's just, a little bit, everybody in that meeting is going to say, oh yeah, we want more tax revenue. There's no, I don't, so.
Right.
To the degree that we want to pitch that development is good, yeah, it is, I would argue, more something we should do we should also do at town meeting, and then potentially at the, planning board or zoning board of appeals when various projects are coming up.
My point on this, again, building on what Peter's saying, is not that development is good, because everybody's going to, pardon me, it's going to agree with that. Sorry.
That's okay. Take your time.
Everybody's going to agree with this. I think the point we're trying to make here is development is essential, because if we don't have development, then the only other choice is Prop 2.5 overrides. Okay, so if at some point, at some point, our tax revenue growing at 2.5% a year is not going to stay up. So we either need to dig deeply and get development going, or we need to recognize that overrides are going to happen. And given development project timelines, we're probably looking at Prop 2.5 overrides, you know, in the near term anyway, because development is not going to bring tax revenue in, soon enough to do away with the need for those.
Katie, go ahead. I see your hand up.
So again, this is one of my, she's been here a year and asking this new question. I can Google this, but can someone
Don't worry.
explain the Prop 2.5 override a little bit deeper to me and how that works?
Sure. Okay. So we are allowed to increase taxes by 2.5% plus new growth every year.
Okay.
And that is what everybody, I would say, does the full 2.5. I don't think most places do. Oh, we'll just do 1.75. So our base tax for any, the next year is 2.5% over the previous year plus new growth.
Okay.
So it's never 2.5%. People might get confused when they see some of the first numbers in the increase year over year. They'll be like, well, that's more than 2. It's more than 2.5 because you add
The
new growth into that. Yes.
Okay.
If you want to ask for more than 2.5% plus new growth, you have to go through the process of getting either the 2.5% override
Mm-hmm.
or doing a debt exclusion for something specific. So when we fix the Green Meadow roof and we asked for, I forget, it was a few $100,000 or maybe $1 million. I can't remember off the top of my head.
1.9 million, I think.
Okay, that was a debt exclusion. So that added to your tax bill, and it had to be voted on to do so.
Yeah.
But it's not part of that 2.5 cap.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and debt exclusions just require voting at town meeting, but a Prop 2.5 override, correct me if I'm wrong, because it's been a while since we've had one, but that one requires town meeting plus ballot. Am I correct in that?
So a debt exclusion, there are only certain purposes you can do a debt exclusion. So a capital project would certainly be an example of that. And the rationale here was that Prop 2.5 was initiated in order to cap regular growth, but not capital projects. But you still have to go through a debt exclusion for that. But there are certain things that you're allowed to do for debt exclusion. An operational override is not for a capital project, it's for operating funds. And the one thing I would say about that is that a number of towns understand that costs go up more than 2.5% a year.
Yeah.
Now, many communities have enough growth that they're able to, offset increases in their budget through growth. Maynard, being a small town and having a lot of constraints on actual physical growth, doesn't have that option. And so, whereas some towns might be able to grow their way out of budget problems, at least in the midterm, that's not a choice that we have here. And so that's the reason why. So there's actually a really great document, Katie, on this that's very easy to understand, that goes to an explanation of that. And so I can, I'll email you the link and stuff like that.
Awesome. Thank you.
And now I need to ask a clarifying question. Because I said debt exclusion doesn't require a ballot, but there are times at which it does. Is it a certain threshold of amount? Or
I'd have to look back at the rules. I mean, off the top of my head, I thought they all had to be verified by not only a town meeting vote, but a ballot vote as well. But again, I'd have to look.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
So essentially both are just raising their taxes.
Well,
Yes.
so you raise taxes, you raise taxes all the time anyway. The point is that without
Additionally.
Prop 2.5 says, you know, and this is to me an important point here. It says the town can raise them up to 2.5 without engaging the community in conversation. We recognize there are going to be times when you're going to have to go above 2.5. And if that happens, then you engage the community in a larger conversation about what specific things. So override isn't just, we want to raise money. You have to raise money for a specific operational expense.
That a majority of the people have voted to be on board for after said conversations. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Kevin, did you have, yeah, go ahead. I can't hear you.
Yep. So
There we
hi.
go.
So I
Hi.
just want to point out there's actually a third way to meet the budget needs. You can expand revenue. You can cut services, but as an alternative to cutting services, you could also reprogram and identify economic efficiencies, where you're delivering the same level of service, but you've identified cost efficiency, so the impact on the budget would be less, but you're maintaining the same level of service. It just
Okay.
might be in a different form that is more cost efficient. And that was a subject of an email that I sent out, and hopefully we can get to at some point at this meeting.
I wonder if my only thought on that is that is correct. More likely than not, it's, you know, the cost savings or what, you know, how large that would be. Would it be the same level as the other two? I'm just wondering if I would put it as a third bullet or if I would say cut services or identify, you know, efficiencies in services. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the literature, they specifically spit it out, like how do municipalities deal with budget challenges, and service cuts they call generally austerity. Reprogram what I call, you know, identifying cost efficiencies, changing the form of service delivery, but maintaining the same level of service.
Okay.
The literature generally calls that reprogramming or municipal pragmatism. And I mean, our town has taken some actions. I mean, I've been talking to DPW about the trash, and you know, one example of an efficiency is the Christmas trees. Like what DPW found was that while we were subsidizing Christmas tree disposal, there was an economic inefficiency there in that like non-residents were utilizing that service. Now that's minor. The item I want to talk about is actually a lot larger.
Yeah,
than just
but I think, you know, with all due respect, Alana's point is you're not going to fix the budget problem through efficiencies. Okay, you can correct the inefficiencies, and we should be correcting the inefficiencies. I would completely support you on efforts to do that, but you're not going to solve the problem by doing that alone. Eventually, you know, if you don't do development, you are going to have to raise taxes above that 2.5%. And you know, we keep kicking the can down the road on that. And so.
And I would say we do have lots of committees in place for the purpose of identifying those inefficiencies, hopefully. You know, that's what all the various committees are there to do.
But
it seems.
But Katie, as FinCom, our role is to be an independent body, and while there may be overlap with certain committees, our role is to provide an independent voice, even though we may overlap with certain committees in the executive branch. And one of our key roles is to be exactly that, as the financial advisor to the town, and to be identifying government inefficiencies and identifying, especially financial, identifying economic inefficiencies and ways that our government could deliver services more efficiently.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely secondary to the others, but I don't disagree that it's not, you know, a way that you can affect your budget. And I do also agree that, you know, it's certainly not going to get us to where we want to be, but it is part of it. So
I mean,
I think there's
I think we should look at the numbers with the solid waste disposal. I mean,
Okay.
it's not it's not like long term, but the numbers is in the it's over $500,000
Mhm.
in possible savings that could be had there.
Okay.
But I really want to reserve comment until that's the
Yeah.
topic. But I think we should, before we make blanket statements like that, I really think we should look at the financials of what's going on in our town before
Okay.
we make blanket statements like that.
So let me just throw back to this idea. Do we want to keep this slide for this meeting and this purpose, or should we keep this as something we put in the presentation to annual town meeting?
I personally think it's a discussion that we need to have. It's a discussion we've had in the past, and it's a discussion we need to have each time as we're reviewing this is what sets the tone
Okay.
for the coming months. Okay, I don't want to wait till town meeting to have this context.
Right.
And I wish frankly, I wish the select board would, you know, engage in a more robust conversation about this instead of just focusing on the current year. But
Well, I also think if we're talking about the fact that this is between us and the select board, and the select board does a lot of deliberation with, you know, developers, and like they're definitely they're a board that you have to get through in a lot of, you know, ways. So to me, I think this is kind of part of our conversation with them, because they,
well,
you know,
more to the point, they're the board who has to put forward an operational override. So
Mhm.
they're the only board that can do that. And they need to recognize that you can either look at development in the long term and stave this off, or we're going to have overrides, or you're going to end up having to cut services. And, you know, we're already at the point where, you know, again, as I said before, we're cutting services that, in my just opinion as one person, we shouldn't be cutting.
Okay. So we'll keep this then. The next slide sort of goes, or is there anything else on any of the other bullet points? Okay. This next one sort of goes with that, because and I think I sent around to everybody the DLS website. I was poking around some of their analytics and things, and honestly, this surprised me. I mean, I knew that we were mostly residential, but when you see it in this form, it really is pretty shocking. I really thought we had more commercial. So it just seemed like a good visual, just kind of backs up that that previous slide.
Amen. That's all I can say. Amen.
Alana, I can't see my eyes are terrible. For
No,
the
that's okay. It's
colors-
probably tiny.
No, it's
Let
okay,
me-
but I just wanted to see what the different color brackets were.
Sure.
I might suggest to put this before that's the slide we were just on.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I agree, Jillian.
It'll be okay. Great.
It's
You
a
can kind of
powerful
frame it to
statement.
be like, you can be like, you know, there's not,
Very,
yeah.
very
So there it
good
is.
point.
So it's residential is blue, commercial is yellow, industrial is purple, and
Wow,
personal property is green.
that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're saying like, there's no more pie that we can take from the blue. Like
Right.
Right.
they're only going to cut it so deep. So
Mm-hmm.
you might also want to put something in there on what is currently slide number 2 about like how growing and development fits in with the master plan. I always use the wrong word to describe it.
Oh yeah.
The,
No, the master plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that was a nice document that they took a lot of time putting together.
Sorry, these errors are going to be the death of me. I gotta do this something else. I'm just going to put master plan here for I'll figure out how to wordsmith that. All right, good. And then this is a slide, and I hope it's not too tiny. Let me know if you need me to make it bigger to read.
No, it's
I can
fine.
read it good.
Okay. These were things we have identified in discussion. I thought Budget Busters was kind of cute, but it's probably really drivers, a little more professional.
I think drivers would be better, but Budget Busters has a negative connotation.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
true.
we have a school department because we have to provide a school for our children.
Oh,
We have an-
certainly. No, and I don't like
no.
the those titles, employee benefit school, those certainly aren't meant to be like
Yeah,
negative.
no, I think
Just just the area of which.
So Alana,
Mhm.
about those budget drivers,
Mhm.
there is a probably a highly relevant caveat
Okay.
about water and sewer. Water and sewer are provided via an enterprise fund. And
Mhm.
those enterprise funds, the money that goes into those enterprise funds does not count for Proposition 2.5. So if we're talking
Okay.
about the constraint imposed on our budget
Mhm.
by Proposition 2.5, enterprise funds do not count. That goes for water and sewer. That would also go for solid waste. That would go for any sort of enterprise fund that we as a town would launch.
I think, Kevin, so you are correct, Kevin. I think one of the reasons why we continue to bring up water and sewer is because of two things. One, the outstanding infrastructure maintenance costs that are inherent in that. And that makes it different from trash. We don't have a significant infrastructure maintenance liability with trash collection. We do with water and sewer. And I think because water and sewer is a utility that is provided to virtually the entire town and is viewed as part of the cost of living in Maynard, that's why we had typically included that as part of the discussion. You're absolutely right. I'm, in terms of what you said, I'm just explaining why we tend to put water and sewer historically in these discussions, and we don't for the other enterprise funds.
So I'll also say, like, part of the motivation for why we as a town decided to convert to the enterprise fund was also the understanding that we would no longer have as much pressure from those infrastructure spending on the general funds. So remember how I mentioned efficiencies? One of the outlets to relieving pressure on our general fund, and our general fund is under pressure, is to look to see what services we can convert to enterprise funds. That would be one means of relieving the pressure on the general budget without necessarily cutting services.
Yeah, but so in theory, I don't disagree with you, Kevin. But what service would you convert over that would make a significant difference in terms of our operating budget?
For FY23, the solid waste.
No, come on, solid waste is not gonna, we're not gonna balance our budget in the short term or the long term by converting it over.
Can I just quote the financial number that I received from DPW? So the general fund impact from our solid waste program was $611,000. Converting to an enterprise fund with a modern automated cart system, getting off a obsolete collection system, would largely eliminate that financial impact at a sticker price, to an effective sticker price to our residents, close to or even less than what they're paying currently. If you recall from our school committee presentation, the difference between what the TA budget is presenting to them and what they're asking for is roughly 500,000. So hypothetically, we may be able to prevent service cuts to the schools by converting our solid waste to an enterprise fund and upgrading the whole system to a modern automated system that's less labor intensive, less cost intensive. And by doing so, we can stave off the service cuts that all of us, I think, are dreading.
And what are you going to do for FY24?
For FY, well,
For FY25? What are you going to do for FY25?
26 and 27.
well, that
Well-
600,000 is an ongoing cost. That's an
No, I
annual-
understand, but costs are going to continue to go up more than 2.5%. And so you are absolutely right. And frankly, I admire the amount of study that you've put into this issue to find an alternative that actually makes a lot of sense. My point simply is that solves it fills the gap this year. It does not fill the gap on an ongoing basis. That's the only thing I'm saying.
Yep.
And so you kick, essentially we kick the can down the road another year, but it still comes.
But it also may be that the 1 year is important.
Yeah.
But I got to interject a little bit on the idea of enterprise funds. I think we have to recognize as the FinCom that, and I don't mean this quite the way this sounds, but I'm searching for another way to put it, but enterprise funds are essentially an end run around 2.5. So, for the same taxes, we're now going to deliver less services because we go and stick it in an enterprise fund and charge for it separately. So I think specifically to the original point of why we want to include enterprise funds in the various discussions is they represent a significant burden to taxpayers. And water and sewer is expensive. And so, it's not just the technical part of what can we push the limit to on the law on 2.5. It's more globally, what can residents afford? And
I think
you have to
Kevin's,
include water and sewer to that.
and I think Kevin's point is that once you make it into an enterprise fund, then any additional expenses over the coming years then get moved to that enterprise fund. Same with water and sewer. So I think that's his point. That's the strategy that he is advocating, is that you take significant things like that and you move them to an enterprise fund. Yes, it's an end run around Prop 2.5. Okay, but it's a legitimate one because you're moving it to an enterprise fund.
And I will say two things.
Yeah.
First, Proposition 2.5 is a very deeply flawed law that really, it makes it
Then
very
repeal it.
difficult.
You can't. then
Yeah, but
repeal
we
it.
got to
It
work
is
within the
law.
system we
Yeah.
have. I mean,
Yeah,
It is
that's
what it is.
But
absolutely true.
It does not take into account inflation. And in fact, it makes it very difficult to maintain a level service budget in the face of 8% inflation. It creates a lot of hoops for a town to go through just to maintain a level service budget in the situation we are under right now with 8 to 10% per year inflation.
Well, it comes as no surprise that you're preaching to the choir on that. You're preaching to the preacher's convention on that.
Yeah. My second note is that there's more than just the end around to Proposition 2.5. There's economic efficiencies to be had. There's automation efficiencies to be had to reduce the cost impact of solid. In the case of solid waste, there's more than just the fact of the enterprise fund itself. There's economic efficiencies involved with keeping track of things, and also by virtue of converting to a modern automated cart system instead of using the 20-year out-of-date system we are currently using to collect trash.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to put like an asterisk note that enterprise funds are not included in the calculation of the 2.5% tax increase.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I would suggest that doesn't solve the problem in the longer term. And
Yep.
I mean, I admire I admire the effort to solve a problem in the short term. But I think, if I'm looking at this particular slide, we're sitting here talking about budget drivers. And budget drivers, the school department is a significant budget driver because it's a huge portion of our money. And the problem, the issues, the challenges are not just sped costs and charter school costs. It's the fact that all costs go up more than 2.5%. Okay, they're all costs across the school system go up more than 2.5%. Okay, and so to sit there to draw attention to the sped costs and charter school tuition that ends up getting paid, sets aside the fact that school department costs go up that more than 2.5%, and you're not going to solve that problem in the long term unless you increase your tax revenues by more than 2.5%, either through development or through operational overrides.
Okay, but I have a comment to make on that piece that you just said, only because does that, is there any reason why the school department's budget would go up over 2.5% and all the other town budgets wouldn't also have the same issues with inflation, issues with costs going up? And so we could make a bullet point that says, general, like the budget, living within 2.5% is hard, but I don't think that's just a school department problem.
Then make that point.
Okay.
Because I would agree with you, Alana. This is not just a school department, although I would say that the school department has taken hits year after year. I mean, we were taking hits when I was on school committee, prior in 2011 to 2014. So, this is a more than 10-year-old problem. And
I agree. But I think part of the reason that it's the one that takes, because it is the biggest chunk, it's going to feel the biggest issues.
Correct. And so,
but that's not to say that DPW doesn't not get what he wants in his budget, and neither, and the fire department's been asking for a deputy fire chief for years, and
so
whatever. I mean,
I would put that bullet first. I would sit there and say, fact is, costs go up more than 2.5% a year, and other communities who have a lot of growth can use that growth to offset that. Maynard doesn't have that option. Maynard doesn't have a new Maynard crossing that it can, that it can build every year in order to do that. Some communities do, we do not. I think we also ought to point out, I guess, while we're doing this in terms of budget drivers, is that we are a micro-urban community and we have infrastructure that other towns do not have. We have
I hit that a little bit in the DPW. I said city services on a town budget.
Well, we have
mostly about water sewer, but
we have our own school system.
No, you're right.
Okay, and so when you have your own school system, that means that you have to have there's a heavier proportion of administrative costs, because you have to have a superintendent, you have to have reading specialists and all those other things that I mean, some of that is certainly a function of how many students you have, but much of it is not. You get down to a school our size, you can't just magically sit there and say, okay, we can do with fewer guidance counselors, we can do with fewer other administrators. Again, personal opinion.
So Ken, I would add that is not limited to these schools as well. Administrative costs in a town our size, administrative costs get scaled across very much fewer people relative to towns of typical size of Massachusetts.
Again, no disagreement there.
Yep.
You're gonna get zero disagreement on this. I think the impact is, so here's, I guess, the difference in my mind, okay? If you have a pothole in your street, that sucks, okay? I mean, there's enough streets around here got potholes, that's bad, okay? But the reality is that next year you can take some money and patch up the potholes. If you let the school system, if you do not fund the school system, that has a direct impact on students' education, and that is harder to recover from.
Jillian, I'm going to go to you. I see your hand up.
Thanks. What if you went with the prior slide with the bar chart and just show the full like 45 or whatever it is, and then sort of how it's broken out, and then above the bar put just a little wedge, which is 2.5%, so they can see how much it actually increased, like make a visual thing of what you're saying with words.
That's very cool.
So then they can like see like
No, I like that a
small.
lot. That's a great
Just
idea.
describe it to me again, just so I know what.
So show them what a 2.5% wedge looks like. 2.5% wedge is like a thin line.
Okay. Okay.
So like if you go with your theme of bars here, like on the next thing where you're talking about the budget and how it's broken out and what the budget drivers are, show one bar that's just the 40, what is it? 35 million or whatever number it is. I always forget. And, say like this percent, how like Greg makes the pie chart and shows like, this much goes to school, this goes here, this goes there. The things that you call out in the bullet point, they can see it on the bar chart and be like, well, okay, the school is this big part of the bar and this is this part of the bar. And then next to the current year bar, you can show just a little sliver above it and be like, this is what 2.5% added to the bar would be for next year. Like that's, or like above it and just be like, this is what we're allowed to do by Prop 2.5. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, that would be powerful, I think.
Very much so. I like
Okay.
that. Dang, Jill.
Yeah, on fire.
what
Jillian,
I do pitches.
I was going to say,
if money, if you can't explain your problem,
I may call on you to help me with that visual if you have any time.
Okay.
I would love that.
Is it this weekend? Is it this Saturday?
It is this Saturday.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I know. We can talk after the meeting, or you can give me some pointers at least. Okay. Other thoughts from the committee on this slide before opening up to any other thoughts?
So I think the one thing that so I'd like to talk a little bit about the capital projects paragraph, because I do think that is a budget driver. And so the fact that we repeatedly remove the capital budget line item is means that we end up having to go out and fund projects, and I think that's a really important point to put in here.
Can you explain that, Ken, a little bit more? So the capital budget line item, is that removed multiple years?
Well, so imagine, I guess the analogy I would draw is, let's say, you want to save up for a vacation. And so you set aside money every month in order to do that. Okay. If you set enough money aside, then you don't have to use your credit cards in order to pay for your vacation.
Right.
Or maybe you only need your credit cards to pay for half the vacation instead of all of it. And so when you just, when you continually sit there and say each month, well, I'm gonna spend that line item, then you end up having to use credit for the entire thing. I don't know if that
makes
helps.
sense. So we're not funding it at all.
It's a budget line item that we have advocated to have in the budget. I think we're looking for 250,000 was the number that we sort of shot for.
This has been years that we've been advocating for this.
But it's, as Ken said, it's not a must-have, quote unquote, in terms of balancing the budget in any given year. So it's one that ends up on the chopping block when things get tight.
Okay.
We do have a capital stabilization account, which is not a required stabilization. You know, we need to have a town stabilization account. We're not required to have a capital stabilization account, but we do. So it's not all terrible. We do some with the, you know, there's some good things.
Okay.
You know,
Thank you.
the one thing I would add on this is, maybe adding some numbers on this. I suppose being prepared to draw the contrast between a capital budget line item and capital stabilization might be useful as well. So many of these would probably, when you talk about sped costs, and maybe this is something you can get with Natasha to sit there and say, can we put some numbers, numbers around his, and
Okay.
that might help. Having said all that, I like the 3 slides. I like it. It's neat, it's clean, it's to the point. And I do agree with the point of putting current slide 3 first.
Okay.
And then going into the and then going into the point about, you might, I suppose, yeah. So the bar chart, and then the fact that development is really essential if we're going to do this, and then talk about the budget drivers. This last slide, could engage in a broader discussion across not only the select board and the FinCom, but including the school committee and school department, school administration as well.
We are also going to be having Capcom this year.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. Natasha, I see your hand raised, and I think that was on this slide, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
I think Ken touched on a lot of them about the drivers, the school department driver. I wanted to just add some other drivers that the school department had indicated as well, which I think might be helpful, that are more, again, impactful. Technology, transportation, and
Transportation, I know, has been a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, utilities and food costs. So I know those are the areas right now that we do see. We've gotten reimbursements from the state, but those are not necessarily going to continue into the next fiscal year, with the food meals reimbursement for, and also the contract. There's a formula that Winston's has built into there where they base certain charges to the district based on inflation. So I think highlighting, and again, those are areas that will fall well above 2%, 2.5% increases that I think are unique to the school.
Natasha, I got transportation, technology, and food costs. There was a 4th. What one am I missing?
Hold on, I just pulled up our transportation, technology, food costs, and utilities. I don't see are on there, but I think that does warrant. It's not unique to the school department. However, I think maybe putting at the top, I think across the board, utilities are one of those areas that inflation has, and we've seen that is indicated in our budget driver for sure.
My only sort of pushback on that is for the others, I was sort of keeping it at a level of things that, if you're talking about the budget drivers are in, we're talking sort of about like millions for most of these, not like thousands. And so, I mean, we could certainly go into smaller, all sorts, and I'm sure everything you mentioned does add up to that, but that was sort of why I pulled out the ones I did, is because of the magnitude of them, I guess.
Yeah, I would tend to agree.
Well, transportation is million. I would say it's over. I mean, combining special education tuitions, that's one thing, but then there's special education, transportation, and in-district transportation. So
Okay.
that one would be one that I think is certainly over $1 million.
All right. What if I add it to this one, sped and transportation?
Well, it's both. It's not just sped transportation. It's also like it's combined overall transportation for the district. I mean, the school
right.
will have it in our presentation. It's just outlined there, but I just think it's worthwhile highlighting. It's not just, to Ken's point earlier, it's not just about sped and charter costs that are going up. These are some of those costs that are going up above the, 2.5% annually. Utilities is almost 700,000. So, I mean, they're not small potatoes. Not a million,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
technology is rising actually. So it's right now it looks at almost 600,000. So anyway, I just wanted
I guess.
to
Okay.
mention those because those seem to be more school specific
Right.
that I think are worth, people will understand at your home, food costs,
Yep.
those kind of things are going up and are hard to, those are unique to the school. That's it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh, Alana,
Yep.
so
Mhm.
I've heard inflation mentioned a whole lot, and
Mhm.
I think that's a huge significant driver of costs.
Okay.
Could we
Probably up in
change?
here.
Yeah, could we change the language to say like new growth is not covering the delta between the 2.5 increase and just inflation? Because even if you like
I would
just
almost give it its own bullet
yeah,
because it is kind of a special fluctuating thing.
yeah, here's the fact: like new growth is not covering the delta between 2.5% increase and just to keep pace. If
Yeah.
we factor in the cost increase, and really, if we look at like, and just bring it back to the schools, like teacher salaries have not kept pace with inflation. Yeah, I know they're going to contract negotiation, but so far, like the salary increases have not kept pace. The benefits are starting to keep pace. I think that increase in benefit costs, that 8% seems to be reflective of inflation
Mhm.
that we're looking at. But
Yeah.
last year, as noted in the free cash, we got a premium holiday because of COVID.
Right.
So that the inflation from COVID, we kind of got a respite for, but
Right.
now,
No, to be honest, the 8% is closer to trend than, what we have been paying the last couple of years. We have had definitely a dip due to COVID. So unfortunately, this is closer to probably what we're seeing for the next, consecutive budget years.
I also know if we look at our capital projects, like every time we go to CPA, and Marble Farm had like almost a doubling in cost.
Yeah.
So like cost increases are, again, it's reflective of inflation. It's just reflected everywhere. Right. Our capital projects have gotten more expensive because of inflation. Like everything's gotten more expensive because of inflation.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that we're just starting to see now. Some of it was reflected during the pandemic, and some of it there's a lag associated with that.
Right.
There's probably a bit that we're going to see in the future. I think a lot is more lagged than
which
anticipate.
Which is why I'm nervous, which makes me a little bit nervous that we're only starting to see the beginning. And if thankfully disinflation is trying to take hold and things are starting to normalize, but I think like with COVID, like there's a lag in the indicators. Like there's a lag in the indicators before we. So I don't think we've seen the peak of the impact of inflation on our town's finances yet.
Okay. I did have a thought for one additional slide. I had not flushed it out yet. I was wondering, and I can pull up the latest projection model that I sent to you all from Bob McCarthy, who's been working on it. If there was something from that specifically that we wanted to call out, highlight, or something, that we could do that. I don't know. If anyone had anything specific. But that was my only other thought for another slide. If we thought
I
that's
think I would probably advocate for sticking with the slide, you know, the slides as you have them. I don't
Okay.
see anything in particular in here. And again,
that we didn't already cover.
Speaking as just one person, I think that was it. I don't know if you could put that driver slide back up. And the reason why I was saying is I think, you know, maybe what you're getting at with regard to the, you know, the projection slide is sort of, okay, you know, if we have these budget drivers, what do we do about them? And so is that where, you know, is that sort of where we're going with, you know, with this? I can only see part of it here, so. I guess, again, just to try to tie the two things together, is what we're trying to do here next is, when you say the, you know, sort of the projection, is it, what do we do about this as we take a look at the coming year's budget?
Oh, you're muted, Alana.
You're on mute, you know.
Sorry, I stopped to take a sip of water. And my slides froze, so I'm just going to open those back up. I guess it would be yeah, just more more zoom out, or more like, is there something else, if we look at projections, that we would, you know, want to be like, and by the way, you know, this in 20, you know, FY 26, 25, 26 is also a problem, or
right. I
something
guess
like that.
I
But
guess what I would say is let's say the select board sits there and says, Alana, you're absolutely right. These are the problems. These are
okay,
drivers.
right,
What do we do about it?
right,
Okay, so we think that there ought to be a capital line item. Okay, so what would you have us do about it? Where would you have us cut?
hmm,
Of course, my answer would be, well, maybe we need to do, you know, an operational override if we can't find the money, you know, in the budget where we have it. So, but I think where, you know, where you're going with this, if I can, is the projections are, here's what FY 24 looks like. Okay. So you just got done with the budget drivers slide. What's the summary slide? What's the end message?
Yes, yeah, I guess that's what I'm struggling with. Sorry, I think I might have had another technical issue. Can you all hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, sorry. I think for whatever reason, the slide sharing is deciding to crash. So I'm going to stop that for now. But yeah, I think that is sort of maybe what I was looking for in one additional slide, is anything in summary or action items or whatnot. But it's hard because while I understand everything that we've discussed with the restraints on the 2.5%, I myself personally struggle with, and knowing that we are going to be adding on a large, likely, should the vote go through, adding on a large debt exclusion for Green Meadow in the fall, that it is, for me personally, hard to advocate that we should do a Prop 2.5 override, because it just seems like so much to ask of our, of our taxpayers.
No, I get it. I mean, it's like asking a family member to go out and get a second job because the income from their first job isn't enough. It's not pleasant. I don't like doing it. But the reality is that's, that's where we are as a town. And so I think, if I were to sum up your slides and sum up the discussion, I think what I would say is, there's probably nothing that we can do in FY24, but we need to stop kicking the can down the road, and we need to figure out what we're going to do, because a Prop 2.5 is likely to be required. I mean, we haven't even talked yet to the school system about whether they can live with the town administrator's recommended budget. And if that's not the case, if the school system can't be run on this, we might be at year 0 right now, which means that we may have to do an operational override this year in order to do that. So we heard from the school system in January, and then we heard from the town administrator, and my sense is the numbers that the school system was talking about in January and the numbers that ended up on the town administrator's budget as submitted to the select board were very different. Were significantly different. And so it may end up being the school system comes back and says, sorry, we can't do it. And we may end up having to go for an operational override now. But that I think, again, just to tie this up, I would say, we may think what we can do this year is being rather limited given the budget realities. And that may or may not be, depending on where the school system goes with their own assessment of the town administrator's budget. But, we're at the point here where we need to start taking a look at operational overrides on a fairly regular basis. That's one way of summing it up.
So
Other thoughts? Yep.
Really thinking hard about the tax impact on our residents. We really don't have, we talk about budget, but we don't talk about, we looked at budget history, but we haven't looked at tax impact history and how much taxes have gone up year over year. I know you mentioned Green Meadow, but the other fact we have to bear in mind is that we also have a lot of debt that's also being retired. I believe the middle school is being retired and the library is due to be retired. So I really think before we can really make a recommendation regarding the nature of overrides and talking about what the impact of the taxpayer is, we have to actually determine what the impact of the taxpayer has been, is currently, and is going to be regarding various different scenarios.
Yes, and I was looking back to our, I think it was our presentation in 2020 or 2021. It was that presentation, Ken, you'll remember, where we had the scenarios like D1, D2, D3, and there was a chart at the bottom of one of them with the tax, the average tax over the last few years and then projected. And I was thinking that I was going to ask you if we had that done for us, or if that was something that we had calculated, or if I should ask if I can show some, the town staff that chart and see if they can update it for us.
I don't recall. I'd have
Okay.
to, I'm guessing we got it from the town, but I'd have to look at it. I don't remember. I
Yeah.
vaguely remember what you're talking about, but I don't remember it enough to
Right.
remember in my mind.
Okay. Yeah, I will see if that is, I mean, I'm sure that is something we can get, whether or not we can get it by, Saturday, maybe not, but we did have something similar to that in the past. And so I will see if we can get that recreated.
Yeah, I mean, step one in my project manager training is what gets measured gets improved. So if you're not measuring it, you're not really able to improve the scenario. So really, to start making progress in this area, we really have to start measuring it very carefully, to make sure that we don't have any gaps in our understanding of what our town's financial impact is on residents.
Okay, so just to go back to last slide thoughts. In summation, we should say that might take me a second. That overall, we are looking at how to balance the tax burden on our residents with the needs of the budget.
I don't think it's I'm not saying we should be irresponsible. The idea here is not to reduce tax burden. We certainly want to keep taxes low. But our responsibility is to sit there and say, here are the expenses and here are the revenues. And we can reduce the expenses or we can increase revenues. Okay. I'm not saying we're insensitive to the impact on that, but we've got to look at the way to balance the budget, the expenses. And so I'm not sure I would advocate sitting here saying our concern is to keep taxes low. I think our concern is to sit there and look at the expenses, look to see if there are legitimate ways that we can reduce them through, efficiencies or whatever, but then take a look at revenues and look at ways to increase that.
I could agree with that. Our role is to take a look at financial efficiency, see if we can decrease that. Once we completed that, then we look to, if we can't see it, then we have to make the choice between cutting services or raising revenues, as Ken said. And Proposition 2.5 should definitely be discussed. I think a discussion is definitely warranted. At the very least, so that our town meeting voters know what the trade-offs are. I think we're doing them a disservice if we only present one side, that the only option they have is the TA budget and service cuts that go along with that. I think we're doing town meeting voters a disservice if we only present that one side. I think we also have to say, look, there are other options, which would include Proposition 2.5 override, among other things.
Okay.
You're muted, Ken.
Yeah, Alana, I'm looking
Mhm.
back at the 2020 report.
Mm.
And it looks like that came out of a DLS document.
Okay, I'll have to go look at their site again because I was able to find this year's or FY23's average family tax, but I didn't find historical, but it's got to be
This-
there somewhere.
This does not look familiar to me, meaning that I don't think I put it together.
Okay.
I think, you know, I think somebody else may have done it. Do you have the budget review? Do you have a copy of it?
Yeah, the one that you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
So I don't need to resend it.
No.
Yeah.
It's actually on the town website if anyone's.
Okay.
Okay. So I also just wanted to say that, you know, what we present here in this slide deck is, you know, representative of sort of our general consensus and our discussions, but certainly when we open up, there will be a discussion section in the meeting. And when we open that up, it is at that time you are, you know, you are free to speak as a member, and, you know, it does not have to, I guess, toe the party line entirely. If you have thoughts that you want to, you know, bring forward in that discussion, that is, you are perfectly free to do that at that time. All right. Well, if we're feeling pretty good about that as our formal presentation, then I think we can move on.
Are you, what are you gonna do next steps? Are you gonna sort of finalize it?
Yeah.
Send it out to us to sort of make sure that,
Yes.
you know, we can get back to you with individual comments?
Yes, I think
Okay.
that would be.
Okay.
I'll email it in its final draft form.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
And thanks also for putting this together.
Of course.
I know how hard this is, so thank you.
I know you do. Okay. So great, awesome. Moving along in our agenda. Let's go to minutes from our last meeting. And Katie, thank you very much for sending those along.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. So we had that budget discussion with Greg. And then Megan and Bill.
I was just noticing only because it was highlighted in blue there
Yep.
on the prior page.
Okay.
I think personal is supposed to be personnel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Only because it was marked in blue.
Which means I would have seen that.
All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, if we're getting all picky on
Oh.
typos,
Sure.
there's a Mill and Main right there.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Oh, good job.
It's not mail, it's mill. There we go. That's the problem. You confused the computer. Didn't know which one it was.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes of January 23rd.
as amended, of course,
As
or
amended.
as correct, as it corrected.
As corrected.
Yeah. Yes, and I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Then we'll do a roll call vote. Kevin,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Jillian,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. All right. Moving on to chair report, mostly just prep for the budget meeting. Like I said, had discussion with Jeff prior to his medical leave, we'll hopefully get the agenda posted very soon and see as many as can join us on Saturday for that. I think that's pretty much my big ticket item. So I will open it up to other members. And Kevin, I know you wanted to talk a bit about what you had sent around to all of us concerning the trash.
Yeah, so
I mean, you touched on some of it, but
yeah,
whatever else you wanted to.
So to briefly rehash the email, so I've been looking at the financials of our solid waste disposal. As you can see from the attached spreadsheet, I may be able to share it if people want to see it on the screen. But if you look at the attached spreadsheet, sticker revenues declined almost by 14%.
You can share if you want to.
Sure.
I made it
Yep.
allowable.
All right, so let me just quickly share the spreadsheet so people can see. Oh, 1 second, please.
And I will put this in the board docs for this meeting as well.
Oh, I just lost it. My apologies. I just accidentally closed the window trying to get it. Let me just get it back up. All right. So, so I've been keeping up with the trash committee, trash task force, and now I'll share the screen because I got up. And one concern is that if we look at the financial analysis, the trash sticker revenues have declined 13%. A lot of residents in Maynard are opting for private service. And this raises concerns that regarding the program itself, because the program has over $500,000 impact on the general fund. Sticker revenues are declining. It appears that the sticker program is obsolete and it's being economically outcompeted by private haulers that are utilizing a automated cart system. And by doing so, they're able to deliver better service at lower prices. And so we are seeing sticker revenue declines while the general impact fund, the impact on the general fund is increasing. In addition, DEP has advised DPW not to increase sticker prices further because we already have the highest sticker price in the state. And DEP is concerned that if we raise sticker prices further, we're only going to exacerbate, pretty much make worse the movement of residents out of our program into becoming customers of private haulers.
Is part of that too that DEP wants us to switch to like a cart or another system? Because they often have like reasons, like, do you know what I mean? They prefer something over another.
Well, I could tell you that I did not ask that question of Justin. I was
Okay.
more asking about, like, what's going on with the sticker program. Asked about the financial impact of the automated cart system, and there is significant cost savings by switching to the automated cart system. Because we have a sticker system, what that means is that the driver of the truck has to stop his vehicle, get out,
Right.
walk around, validate the sticker, haul the trash into the back of the truck, walk around, get back in the truck, start up again. Meanwhile, the truck is idling and wasting gas and emitting carbon, all that environmental impact, in addition to cost.
Yeah. that's kind of what I was getting at, is
Yeah.
I wonder if DEP has other reasons why they want the efficiency in terms of environmental
I
impact,
mean
et cetera.
I mean, to be fair, that is my speculation, but it's
Yeah.
if you're sitting there and if you have to get out and walk around, that is gasoline
Right.
that's cost that you're eating, not only personnel, gas, but there's also an environmental cost associated with that as well. Um, and so the compliant, there's this heavy based rule system. There's a lot of inefficiencies that they has to validate by hand. Um, as opposed to the automated cart system, where essentially the driver doesn't have to get out of his truck at all. He just stays seated. He drives up, aligns there's a mechanical arm on the
Right.
side of the truck that just goes down, picks the automated cart up.
Right, like our
dumps it.
recycling. It's
Yeah.
exactly like our recycling.
Exactly like a
ones.
recycling.
Yep.
And if you ever watch it, it takes like less than 30 seconds for them to like get your trash and go.
Kevin, random question. My trash is really heavy. We have a lot of cats and our litter is extremely heavy, and our trash guy has a hurt shoulder. And so he can't lift our bags out of the trash. And so the truck has that and he lifts it with an arm. I wonder why.
If you have a certain type of barrel too, some work better than
Okay.
others.
Yeah.
They can still do it because my guy usually does it too. He can,
Okay.
if you flip open the lid, he can see that there's stickers on there and he can just toss it with the actual arm.
Yeah.
So
Still a ways to
sometimes,
get out, but
yeah, sometimes they do that. Sometimes they have to hand toss it. It really depends.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, really, the constraint is the stickers, because really, if they're doing their job, they
Right.
have to
Right.
validate that there is indeed
Right.
stickers on the bags, and they can't see that if they're in the truck.
And if the lid is closed too on your barrel, then
and not everyone, and very few people are going to be there to like coordinate with them. So,
Kevin, can I ask, were there other? So we've talked about the switching over to the barrel system, which I assume is like sort of with our recycling, everybody gets a barrel or two barrels if they, something like that. Were there any other systems that have been discussed?
Yes. So let me close, and I could get up the other presentation that I shared. It may take me a while to dig it up. I could, if you want, I could just refer you back to the.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be. I was just,
Yeah, there were. I would say the cost savings. So there are two other options DPW presented. One was a bag system, which
where you buy the bag.
But you still have the same problem that in order to validate it, the person has to get out of the truck to go look at the bag.
Right, because then if you have multiple bags in one. Right.
Yeah.
Like you can't see the bag that's below.
You can't see the bag that's below. So it has a lot of compliance issues, like validating that people are complying with the program, and you have the issue of freeloaders that don't put the stickers on the bag and it slips through. Like you have to have countermeasures against freeloading. That is largely eliminated with the automated cart system because they're colored carts with our town logo on it. You could validate it from the truck window as you drive up. It takes 30 seconds, less than 30 seconds for them to do that, get the arm, dump it, and go. So there's significant even the hauler likes this because as you may be aware, there are recruiting challenges in short haul trucking. And it's much easier to recruit a driver that just has to sit in his car and manipulate an arm.
No one wants to do Maynard. We get it.
Yeah. And so this had an impact on our contract cost.
Right.
This had an impact on our contract cost. If you noticed, our contract cost went up significantly.
Yes.
In fact, I want to issue a correction. Like I said before, like the impact of the solid waste program was previously like the $250 range to like $300. That is more than doubled to like 611,000 is the impact to our general fund once you net out the revenues from the stickers.
Okay.
So
wait, can you sorry, Kevin, can you throw that spreadsheet back up again?
Sure. Give me 1 second to call it up. Okay, and sharing my screen. So this was done by DPW. So this spreadsheet came straight from DPW. He referred
All
me
right, but
to.
isn't there, okay, all right, but isn't there a flaw in the E10 cell? I don't think the total's the 1.1 million. I think the total is the 922,000.
So that's the expense total, unassigned total. I really look, I took DPW's kind of, I looked at DPW's numbers, and he says he calculated this is the key cell that I looked at, and that also aligned with what he presented. I could go and do an audit of the spreadsheet if you want, but this is the number that, like, really I was looking for was this number they presented here, which is the projected taxation subsidy or the general fund impact. And the total sticker
Right,
sales
but
here.
again, so that the 1.1 million includes the 922 total, and then double counts the 180,000, and also double counts the 2,700. But who cares? But I mean, the tax impact would only be 428,000, not the 611, if that 1105 cell is flawed, which I think it is. I mean, just click on it, look at the formula.
Yeah.
It just double counts.
Okay. Oh, careful, Kevin. You're showing your Gmail there. You might want to close. Yeah. We can certainly go ask Justin about that.
And then do you know, so there's two new line items for recycling disposal and solid waste disposal. Is it that in the prior contract, those were included in the hauling contract number?
That
and
is,
now we're just.
so what we've seen is an increase in recycling costs. I don't know if that's been reflected in new line items, but what I do know is that recycling costs have increased because there's less of a market for the recycled goods. Instead of having to like sell them, they're having to pay to have them disposed.
Right.
Okay, so I think those are two questions that would be good to know. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Anything else, Kevin, on that topic, or anything else?
So I think we as a committee should examine this from two levels. In the short term, I do think there's a potential savings that can be had if we can work a conversion to an enterprise fund and an automated cart system in 2024. That would save the general fund, that would save the taxpayer $611,000. And if you look at the schools, they're roughly the difference between what they got in July and what they got in the TA's budget was a little bit over $500,000. So we may be able to make up the shortfall by taking the savings we would get by upgrading our solid waste disposal system to a modern automated cart. Use that savings to prevent staff cuts, and then start to look. And I recognize there are also long-term concerns. So this is a short-term fix, but I strongly encourage this committee to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, because I think there's significant savings, significant recurring savings to be had by modernizing our solid waste trash disposal system. And if we don't, I am concerned about the stability, the financial stability of the sticker program. I look at it, it's now a business because it is competing with private haulers in spite of the subsidy. Private haulers are either able to like spend more on services, or they're able to undercut us. Either way, people are leaving the program voluntarily. So our solid waste is now a business, and we're operating on obsolete technology, and we're getting outcompeted by those who made the upgrade to the automated cart system. If you look around, the town and you do a drive around, you can see barrels by private haulers. They're all utilizing the automated carts.
Okay. Anything else from you?
I would just ask the committee to consider adding this to the agenda and possibly making a recommendation if it agrees with my assessment that, you know, the financial stability is.
Well, where is where is the trash? I mean, the trash and recycling committee has only met like once or twice, right?
Yes.
So they're early in their charge.
Yes.
Um,
So I would also remind us that we're an independent body. So our role is to provide a independent voice to the town, and to provide our point of view. What I would like to do is provide the trash task force the kind of the bigger picture point of view from FinCom in regards to the financial of the solid waste disposal, in that this is a heavy drag on our budget, and the financials of the existing program are not looking promising.
Yeah, no, I get that. I do want to be respectful though of other committees in their charges and not, you know, just come in when they're just discovering, you know, the information, you know, they're getting their feet wet in this thing, and as their charge moves forward to present what they believe the option, you know, would be an option or options, I don't know exactly what, to the select board, it would be probably at that time that I would recommend that we, if we wanted to, also said this would be our, you know, agree with that, or maybe have a different idea. I don't know that I would necessarily jump on that committee right away and say this is our perspective. But I'm you know,
perhaps echoing what Alana's saying, or saying it slightly differently, although maybe I'm not saying exactly what she's saying, but I would have trouble thinking FinCom would come to a full opinion without the work of that committee having been done, and then providing us information in order to make that basis judgment. But then secondly, I mean, I get your point, Kevin, and from the initial stuff you're saying, it seems like you're right, and yes, we probably should do this. But I guess my question would be why, you know, if this is so obvious and it is such a financial drain and the private stuff is all cheaper than stickers, I mean, why doesn't the trash committee just, you know, make the recommendation? Why aren't they all on board with what you're saying and have recommendations in for that?
So I believe the trash committee, I mean, I can't speak for the committee. So far, they're just, as you said, they're just getting started. But the trash committee has a mandate to just come up with a recommendation. They don't necessarily have a mandate to like balance the FY24 budget, or a mandate to or a mandate to look for the financial stability of the town. What I would like to do is to have our committee look at it to determine if this matter is urgent. And then if we decide that, like, yes, this is an urgent matter that has impact on the FY24 budget and has questions about financial stability, then to not to force them, but to very nicely ask the trash task force to act with some urgency, but to present to them, here's the financial situation. The financial situation we're looking at a stressful financial situation. Could you please act with a little urgency so we can start to fix these budget problems before the financial situation spiral gets bigger?
well, Kevin, do you know when our current contract with Harvey is over?
So we are on a year-to-year contract. So we could. So
Okay.
we're on
fiscal year to fiscal year.
Yeah, fiscal year to fiscal year. So
Okay.
we could hypothetically switch over to an enterprise fund
Okay.
for FY24. Although I have to talk to Justin about, logistics and all of that, but from a financial standpoint, we're on a year-to-year contract, so we could just switch over. I don't know if we're too far in that the logistics is prohibitive, but financially we're able to do that.
Okay, I apologize. My internet was having a moment. So I turned off my camera so that to hopefully just take down some of its
Yeah,
necessary burden.
I mean, really what I want to do
okay.
is I want to go to the trash commission, present to them what the financial situation is, and I want to be sure that I'm doing that with the consent of the full committee, that I'm accurately representing the committee's consensus of our town's finances and what the impact of our current solid waste program is on those finances.
Okay, well, two things. One, as the liaison from the FinCom, you certainly are allowed to present or discuss your, the financials as you see them.
Yep.
That's not exactly the same as, coming with a statement from the finance committee, but
Yep.
that is part of why you are, why we send a liaison to these committees. So absolutely, you should feel like you have a voice there to, try to get your point across and affect change. The second thing is, I understand what it is you're asking. I believe it is a little early in the process for it, but I'm not saying that it's not something we would move forward with. But I do think, that committee needs a little bit of time before, just coming forward and saying, we think you need to do this.
So I'm not, what I'm asking for is not to preclude the trash task force's recommendation. What I'm asking FinCom to do is to make a statement that should the trash commission recommend a enterprise fund with a automated cart program, this would have a significant benefit to our FY24 budget and or the financial stability of our town.
Has Justin put forward a timeline at all for this committee and when they would make their recommendation?
He is not forcing a timeline. He's
Okay.
he's letting the committee move at the speed of its own choosing. Although I think, this is kind of why I want to give a more sense of urgency, because I think there's opportunity here.
Yeah.
For the FY24 budget. And I don't want to move out of the window for that opportunity.
Okay.
That's my concern, that if we wait too long on this, then the window of opportunity to have immediate impact on our budget will have passed.
Well, don't forget, our budget, is not done until town meeting
Yep.
floor. So there is some time, and but we heard you, and we will continue the discussion. Yep, go ahead, Peter.
Even if we took all the numbers at face value, I have some problem with your statement, Kevin, because it's not really that we're what we're doing is taking money that would otherwise be spent on trash and spending it someplace else. And I'm not sure that is, I forget exactly what you said about it, stabilizing the budget or whatever, but it, which, maybe we want to do that, but it's not like, or the other thing is, if there's some more efficient way to run the program, we can do that, even with a town subsidy, whether it's in the operating budget or in an enterprise fund. But it really is, it sounds like it may make sense. And I've had various discussions where I think this may be something that we would want to talk about more. But, the idea of you know, if we can take that, whether it's 400,000 or 600,000 and spend it elsewhere, that may be something we want to do, but it's more a reallocation of the budget as opposed to, you know, some, you know, I forget the phrase you used exactly, but some, you know, grand thing that we just should do automatically because it makes sense. What we're really saying is we're reallocating the budget. And, you know, that may make sense, but it's not really solving the budget.
Can I correct you a little bit, Pete? This would not result in a reduction of services. The money that we're spending is going into a outdated program. So the money we're spending is going into unnecessary labor costs, unnecessary gas costs, and unnecessary labor costs and unnecessary gas costs. Because again, the sticker program mandates the guy get out of his truck, walk around and check, and then get back in his truck. The automated program is a labor saving device that saves on labor costs, saves on gas costs. That
why can't we just do that then without doing an enterprise fund?
We could. I mean, we could. The enterprise fund also has other efficiencies as well in terms of administrative efficiencies.
But oh, that's it. Efficiency. It's not an efficiency. It's shifting the cost outside the general fund budget.
Yes, but if you look at it would shift the cost. But if you look at the presentation, the cost of the automated cart, if you look at the effective sticker price of the automated carts in that presentation I sent last week, the sticker price without a general fund, the effective sticker price without a general fund subsidy of the automated carts is less than the sticker price of the sticker program with a general fund subsidy.
So I get where you're going, but I confess I have to agree with what Peter and Alana putting forward. Till I see the information in front of me, I'm not sure that I'm willing to that I could sit there and say that it's going to have the kind of impact. Maybe that, maybe it's going to take a long time for the committee to get to that point. Maybe it's going to take far longer than it should. I mean, like Peter said, if it's that obvious, it seems like we ought to be able to make the decision right away. But you're asking the committee to take information that is incomplete in terms of the study and make an assessment about it, the ability of that how this change would somehow stabilize things. And I guess I'm just as one person, I'm not there yet.
Yeah. And the history, this this topic is also something that I know Justin, the select board, and others are sensitive to making sure that a pretty major change, which would be going away from the sticker program, which is what we've had for many years now, has been really vetted, flushed out, and presented to the select board and deliberated on, and then we move forward with this plan and I believe the select board's going to want some public, they're probably going to do some public ask, some opinion, and make sure that that's what it is. And I understand that this process is frustrating and slow. And I understand that a lot of times it does seem a lot easier. And, we think like, this is the obvious solution. But the process is also important in small town government. And that is part of the reason why I'm not willing to yet just be like, here's what we think. So just,
would you
just go,
Yep.
I think you're a super valuable member on this committee and to be our liaison on that committee. And I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of good discussion and deliberation into this. And I know that it seems frustrating. I mean, the same idea with, possibly the old fire station or art space, or like a lot of these things that or the Coolidge School, like any of these projects where we're like, you know, you might be like, well, the best thing, just do this because that's, you know, whatever. But, you know, when it has a great impact on the town meeting voters, the process is important.
But so you mentioned the select board, you mentioned the trash commission, but I did not hear our committee, and I really think our committee of a nature of this financial impact, our committee should definitely be aware of it and should be looking into it. I'm not asking
Yeah.
to come to a decision tonight, but
Right.
what I'm asking to do is, can we start to add this to our regular agenda? Like my first recommendation is can we have Justin come in and talk about this? I know he did it before, but can we come in and have him talk about this, particularly about that $600,000 impact on the general fund as we go into FY24 discussions?
so-
I think we really need to be aware of what this solid waste impact is on our
Yeah.
FY24 budget.
We will be inviting him to come in to talk to us about the DPW's FY24 budget. And so I feel at that time when he's in, we can add some discussion about the trash situation then. Absolutely.
Do you know when that meeting is scheduled? Would it be possible to at least expedite that meeting?
Yeah, I was, that's a good point. I'd have to go back and check in my emails. It's gonna be the next couple meetings anyway,
Oh.
because that's our next couple of meetings will be further discussion with departments that we haven't yet talked about their FY24 budgets. So we invite like the fire department and the police department and all of that.
So I would ask one thing, Alana, that we prioritize the meeting with DPW, because again, I think there's a window of opportunity here to have a hugely beneficial impact to the town. But again, there's probably a window of opportunity that would close if we wait too long. So I would urge this committee to prioritize the meeting with DPW to investigate and talk about this issue.
No, absolutely. They're one of the next, you know, heavy hitters, I would say. So certainly they were, like I said, it might be the next meeting. I have to go back and check my my emails that I've sent out to department heads. All right. Other members with updates?
I was on a Green Meadow Building Committee, but it went really long and I popped off after about an hour and 45 minutes, but it mostly discussed the heating system and costs associated with that, you know, gas and electric versus geothermal versus, you know, and the rebates. And they did a deep dive into that, but
Okay.
I don't think any giant dates or changes were made during that meeting.
Okay. Natasha, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to just mention, because the school committee will be presenting some reserve fund transfer requests. I know last year it was mentioned that the timeliness, or just kind of bringing them up earlier. Right now, Wayne is on medical leave, but there are some bleacher rental pieces that for the fall and what we are going to be doing in the spring potentially that are still being worked out, but the fall expenses at a minimum, you know, were some of those emergency unanticipated to put forth. So I just wanted to just plant the seed that's on the radar, and you know, when we have more solid information on numbers and when, I'll circle back and just share.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other member updates? Okay. So as I just touched on briefly, for our next couple of meetings, we will be focusing on some other departments, inviting department heads in to talk to us about their FY24 budget. At some point, we'll also have the Neshoba Valley Regional School. Usually
Assabet Valley.
Sorry,
right?
Assabet Valley. Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Why did I have?
I don't think Neshoba Valley will come.
Sorry, Assabet Valley. That is a regional school though, right? Neshoba Valley? That is
Good
another
tr-
one further out.
Good try, Alana.
Yeah, sorry. Assabet Valley.
Technical, I think they're technical.
Neshoba is next door. Neshoba is Stowe.
Oh, right. That's
um,
Stowe, Bolton. Yes,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, they're
that's
high
a
school.
That's a regional high school. Sorry,
Yeah, it's
sorry.
regional.
Okay.
Regional school district.
Assabet Valley Regional Vocational School also comes to us to present their budget for the following year. So these things will be happening in the next couple of meetings. And I will start sending. So I've held off. I've been collecting because they're already coming in warrant articles for annual town meeting. I wanted us to get, there's a lot of already emails and things going back and forth with the budget meeting. So I just wanted to get that sort of done and then move on to annual town meeting preparation. So I will be sending soon what we have so far for the warrant for annual town meeting. And I think that's it for me. If no one has anything else, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, do we have a second?
I will second that motion to adjourn.
Okay. Roll call. Kevin,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
and Jillian.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So 8:52 on my computer. And thank you all very much. And we will see each other, or as many of you as possible, on Saturday.
Night, night.
Thank you
Sounds
so
Would you
much.
like me
Alana.
to, Alana, would you like me to email you those charts to the Gmail or the town mail?
Either one is fine, but thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.